All right. Hey, Ron. Thanks for taking the time to hop on with me today. And, so I just wanted to film this quick client success interview with you because I know you've been doing really, really well with our program so far. And I just wanted to document, exactly what you've been doing just to help out some of our current clients and, of course, potential clients. So, just to start us off, Ron, introduce yourself, tell us a little about, where you came from, your agency, your background, all of that, and we'll get right into it.
Yeah, of course, I'm Ron. I've been in the insurance business now for about 8 years. Started off on the, uh, record side, and then now I've been in the underwriting a little bit. And then also, once I got out of that, I wanted to see what the sales side looked like and started my own agency. Um, and from there, we've been an agency now for about 3 years. Um, and we're kind of just small, working our way up. The slow grind, the hard nights, early mornings. So that's kind of how we started. And I'm glad we found you guys, and I think you guys could really, really help us out. We've had a lot of success with you guys. So
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So you're mentioning you're putting some late nights and everything in. What were you doing for lead generation? Before we started working together, was just the relying on referrals, cold calls, door knocking, or was there anything specific that you guys were doing that you knew needed to make a change?
cold calls, and that took up a lot of time. And that's fine if you're getting the quality of sales you want. But one thing we stress is like make your time count. Once you're on the phone, you got to try to close that call. There's no sense in calling it 10 times when they already told you no 10 times, if that makes 9 times, if that makes sense. So we're looking for just try to look for people that are ready to buy. A lot of walking in businesses, introducing ourselves, trying to get started. It's about can you go out there and get that next sale? Can you go out there and grind? And you got to have that part of it. And sometimes it's best to start out that way so you can get your head beat in a little bit, for lack of a better term. But it's a good way to help you start to get used to the sales process of closing, understanding objections, things like that. So it'll help you in the long run.
Definitely, definitely. That's what I've seen as well with a lot of other, agents. Whenever they're first starting out, it's good to go through, the trials and tribulations of doing the cold calls and getting the rejection and working through the quoting process and knowing what questions to ask and how to overcome objections and all of that. So it's good to get that experience too before you start talking with real business owners and
Yeah.
you got to put your time under the bar, as they say. You got to lift the weight and put your time in essentially. So that all makes sense there. So as
Yep.
far as you're closing a couple of our leads so far, and we just started. It's only been less than a month already. You're seeing a ton of success already. What's kind of your process with whenever the leads come in? I know you've got a lot of experience. So just talk to maybe some of the newer agents that we're working with, or newer agencies that are maybe not as familiar with leads or not as familiar with going outbound to businesses, hitting on pain points, seeing if they're interested. What's kind of your process? Are you asking certain questions? How are you starting the conversation? Like once we send you over a lead, what's your typical process?
Yeah, I can run that down really quick. Lead comes in, I like to do my research, make sure it's a good fit for my appetites for the business or the carriers I have, I should say. Once I do my research, I kind of already put some information in the system, getting ready for the lead. I expect the lead to answer. That's always my mindset. Expect them to answer. Expect them to answer.
Hmm.
So when they do answer, I'm ready. And then from there, once the lead comes in, I'll say within 10 minutes, I'm giving them a call. And then, I'm going over, hey, you email back my assistant, uh, about a quote. Just want to follow up on that, make sure that we are the right fit. Because sometimes you may not be the right fit, so
Hmm.
that kind of gets the conversation started for me. That kind of backs off the pressure from them, like, hey, I need the quote today or whatever the case may be. But 99% of the time, I get the quote done right then. They'll have time for me. So always, I make sure that I have my research done. I start my entering. I make the call. After I make the call, they pick up. I introduce myself. Then after I introduce myself, I find out what they want, what they need, and then I start going into their pain points, and trying to figure out what or why they're trying to change a carrier. Most of the time, it is due to price, but sometimes it's due to, I spoke with one. They took 3 weeks to send over a COI, and I was like,
That'll do it.
yeah, and I was like, well, hopefully you don't have that problem with us, and I can assure you won't. But those are the things that I try to find out, and then I try to also give that value back by showing my attentiveness as I'm building out the quote. What do you need? How do you need it? And then I also offer other things. Sometimes I'll get a hard no, I don't want that. But sometimes, oh, I never thought about, I might need that. So it's also about understanding, the other coverages that are out there that could be added to a policy. And from there, I get the quote done, submit it, and then either I'll hang up because it has to be referred to the underwriter for a little bit for whatever reason, or I can give it to him right then. Um, and then that's kind of it from there.
Okay. Okay, cool. And whatever you're doing is working really well. So I'm glad to hear that. So it sounds like you're very conversational with the conversation. You're not just, reading down a list of questions and an interview. You're not really, it sounds to me you're not really doing that. It's more so, you're trying to create that rapport with them, trying to create that relationship with them. Are you throwing in and also too, actually, I'll back up a little bit. That research that you're doing prior to getting on the call with them, what type of research are you doing? Are you looking up like Facebook pages, LinkedIn pages, websites, or are you going even more deep or going deeper than that? What does your kind of like pre-screening look like just so you can set yourself up for that call?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if, in the email that I get from you guys, if it says, hey, I want a big business owner package, or if I just want a
Hmm.
GL, I do different type of things. So if they want a business owner package, one thing I do is I always try to look up the um, business name, the entity name,
Hmm.
under whatever state it may be. And then from there, look up the owners, um, see who's listed or whatever the case may be. I go over to their gallery page, look at their restaurant, see how it looks, or whatever the case may be for the class or for the code it may be. And then from there, I am um, I'll attend occasionally check out the LinkedIn, but for the most part, I don't.
Okay.
I just kind of go ahead and, from there, pick up the phone and give them a call. But, my research just goes into what class is it, where is it at, what is it around, and that kind of helps me base which carrier I know is going to give them the best quote. Because some carriers will give them a quote, but they're not the best quote
Yes.
for the most part.
Hmm.
So, and another thing I always ask them, make sure that I'm not giving them a quote for a carrier they already have. That would not make sense.
No, of course, of course. Okay. It sounds like it's very conversational. You kind of know what you're going to get into. You already, it sounds to me, you already know how you're going to frame that conversation or how you're going to walk around that conversation before
Yeah,
you even call
yeah.
them, which is great. Do you ever run into gatekeepers or are you mostly get directly to the decision maker? And if so, what's your strategy for gatekeepers?
Yeah. So, if I do get a gatekeeper, I normally say, "Hey, you know, this is Ron calling from whatever, insurance agency," and then I'll be like, "Can I speak to the decision maker?" 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, "Oh, here's he or she is." Right? If they say,
Yep.
"Oh, he or she's out the building," can I take a message? I normally don't leave a message. I'll say, "Hey, I'll just give them a call back. When do you think they'll be in?" Because normally 9 times out of 10, the message never makes it. I don't know why, but it just never makes it to where it's supposed to go. So I'll
Right.
just give them a call back, which is, my job anyway. Just, hey, don't be afraid to dial the phone. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Yeah, we all have our little, anxiety every now and again, but pick up the phone, pick it up, dial it. Let's see if you can get them on the phone. And 9 times out of 10, they're ready to talk to you right away. If they're not, always lead with, hey, is now a good time? Should we set up a call?
Mm.
Um, and most of the time, I've only set up like 2 to 3 calls um, out of the like 40 or 20 that you guys have sent in so far. Um, but other than that, that's kind of the process for the most part.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. No, I mean it sounds great. So to me, just to recap for everyone like that's listening to this call, it's mostly you're doing a little bit of research when they come in. It sounds to me your speed to leads pretty quick, and they mentioned you're calling them within 5-10 minutes at most. You're you kind of have you've done your research, so you know exactly what carrier they have, or at least not you might not know what carrier they have, but at least you know their business class code, you know where they're located, you know all of that information. You're just having a conversation with them. You're kind of leading them down that path. You're providing advice, you're building rapport, and then from there, if you get the quote back on the call, you're presenting it. If not, then are you scheduling another call to go over it with them, or is it something that you're just kind of leaving it open ended? Like how, let's say you don't get the quote back on the call, how do you set that next call?
So I normally tell them, hey, I need, it could be 2 hours or it could be 2 days, depending on whatever the case may be. I say, I'll give you a call back. Can I text you directly or can I
Okay,
email
so you're
you
texting
directly?
them.
Yeah, and I always try to get, even though you guys do send email with it, I always try to get another one if there is a better one. Um, but most of the time, it's the ones you guys already have anyway, or the number you
Mhm.
already sent in. Um, and so I normally just say, hey, I text, hey, the quote came back. It's now a good time to talk. Normally they'll say yes. I'll call, and I'll immediately go over the whole quote with them again, like they've never seen it before. That way I don't assume. I don't want to assume that they know they got 1 million general liability per and then 2 million for the each, or 1 million each, per policy. But yeah, that I would definitely go over it again. So I don't want to assume that they already know what they got. Each coverage all the way down the policy, and then if they're like, I want to add this or I don't want this, can I take this off? Or normally I'll say it's kind of packaged together, and normally at times it is, but sometimes it's optional, depending on the carrier.
Okay. And that's actually a great point that you bring up there about you don't want to assume because I see a lot of agents they just send the quote over to them or maybe they don't get it back on the call and they just send it over and hope they're going to just see the email and respond back and pay right there. But yeah, it's a great point that you bring up that you want to call that person up, have that conversation with them, walk them through the quote, show them exactly what it covers, what it doesn't cover, make sure it's actually something they want, the limits are actually there, just making sure it's actually pertinent to their business and it's something that's going to help them out and explaining the benefits of having that policy there. So that's a huge difference that I see in a lot of the top agents that we work with, that they're going through and actually giving them the quote and walking them through exactly what the quote even covers or what the policy is, any exclusions or any of that kind of stuff. So it's a
And I
great
would
point to
say,
bring up there.
Ethan, like, and I would say this, Ethan, like some business owners don't care. Like they just want it. They just want to
That's
know that it's there.
that's true.
Um, but I think it's, fair to kind of, in my experience, to kind of do your job. Like it's your job to tell them what they have and what they don't have, whether they want to hear it or not. Obviously, you don't want to make them, you know, tee them off or anything, but you kind of want to make sure they know that what they're getting is kind of what they expect to be getting.
That makes sense. And also you want to read the room, like you said. Some of these business owners, they're just quick to the point, want to get the quote, want to pay
Right.
for it and get done. Some, want to actually ask questions and understand the policy, and they may have concerns or something, and that's when you put your advisor hat on and show them exactly what they need to see or explain exactly what they need to explain there. So that definitely makes sense. Cool. All right. So any other advice that you would give for either new people starting out or businesses that are considering working with us? Any advice you would give to them?
Um, I think that if you're having trouble getting one quality leads, um, leads that are exclusive, leads that are going to pick up, I think it's best to try out what you guys have, and I think you'll see the success right away. They start rolling in, they roll in fast. You guys do a good job of making sure that we're busy, and we appreciate that, and we definitely are getting our money's worth with what we put in. So we really appreciate that from you guys.
Awesome, Ron. Awesome. I really appreciate it. I'll let you get back to having a great day, and thanks for hopping on and sharing your experience. Have a good
Absolutely
one.
appreciate it, Ethan. Thanks.
All right. See you, Ron.
See ya.